Yo, salute to Jay-Z, the God, the GOAT, the Jigga Man, King Hove. We already know that he's one of the greatest to ever do it as far as his business endeavors and with his music. But I want to know, how many classics did Jay-Z actually have? Let's talk about it. What's good, rap nerds? You already know who it is. It's your boy D-Sick, aka the Rap Nerd, and I'm back, baby. Now, the topic of discussion is Jay-Z. His 51st birthday just passed. Happy birthday, Hove. And I want to dedicate this episode to him, man. He's definitely one of, if not my favorite rappers. My favorite rapper, number one slot, kind of toggles between Jay-Z and Tupac. But, you know, Tupac unfortunately didn't have the time to blossom to what he fully could have been. So, you know, I might have to give that number one slot to Jay-Z. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going to go through Jay-Z's discography album by album. I'm going to talk about them, and I'm going to determine exactly how many classics he has. He has 14 number one albums on the Billboard charts, but we ain't talking about number one albums. We're talking about strictly the bodies of work and the quality of music that he's put out since 96, I believe it was, when his first album dropped. So let's get right to it. So his first album, 1996, Reasonable Doubt. Undeniable classic with songs like Can't Knock the Hustle, Dead Presidents, Can I Live? All types of classics on there, man. You know, it's an undeniable classic, and I think the general consensus in hip hop is that that's a classic. So we're gonna say that that's number one. Next, we got In My Lifetime Volume 1. And to be honest, that album isn't that memorable, if I'm being 100% honest. So I'm not gonna say that that's a classic. In all honesty, I think the In My Lifetime Volume 1 is probably at the very bottom of his discography, in my personal opinion. But Jay-Z's worst album is better than a lot of people's best albums, so you know, whatever. Next, we got Hard Knock Life Volume 2. I'll call that his second classic. That one had Big Pimpin' on there. It had a lot of bangers on there, man. I might have to go back and listen to that one. I haven't heard that one in a minute, but I definitely know that Volume 2 was a classic. You can listen to that from front to back. Moving on to Volume 3, Life and Times of Sean Carter. I feel like this album was a lot more upbeat. I feel like this is when Jay-Z decided he wanted to be a little more commercial and try his best to cross over into the mainstream world and have a lot of pop party type of hits. And although this was a very good album and it got great reviews, I'm not gonna call this one a classic. Just a good album. After that, we got the Dynasty that came out around 2000. And although that was a decent album, the intro to that is probably one of my favorite Jay-Z songs of all time. But I'm not going to call that album a classic. That album was almost like a Rockefeller compilation. It has so many features, and you know, even though Jay-Z was like the entree of the album, the main portion of it, I wouldn't call it an album just because it just seemed, I wouldn't call it a classic just because it seemed like he was, you know, venturing out and trying to put his team on, you know what I mean? So that's not a classic, but a decent album. After that, we got The Blueprint, 2001. And I think the general consensus in hip hop is that The Blueprint is definitely a classic. You have Renegade, Ain't No Love, Lyrical Exercise, Girls, 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 Song Cry. I can name that whole entire album song by song. That album is an undeniable classic, top to bottom. There's not one song on The Blueprint that I don't like. Great album, but not my favorite Jay-Z album, but a great album. Definitely a classic. So that's classic number 3. After that, you got the Jay-Z Unplugged album, which is basically just him performing a lot of his songs live, and they kind of packaged it up and put it as an album. So I'm not gonna call that a classic. After that, you got the Best of Both Worlds with R. Kelly, and I'm just gonna pretend that album never happened because that shit was mad corny. After that, we got, in about 2002, he came out with The Blueprint 2. I loved The Blueprint 2. But as y'all know, the Blueprint 2 was a double album. It had a lot of songs on it. And although I feel like it had some fillers, it had some songs that weren't really necessary, it was a really good album. I will not call that album a classic, but it could have been a classic had it been condensed down to one project. If you condense the Blueprint 2 down to about, I'm gonna say if he would have condensed it down to one album of about 14, 15 songs, it could have been a classic. Moving on, Blueprint 2.1 was basically the same thing as the Blueprint 2, but just with a couple of extra songs. So I'm not gonna say that that's a classic either. After that, in 2003, he dropped the Black Album, my personal favorite Jay-Z album. Amazing, top to bottom, bro. I cried when I listened to this album because I really thought that Jay-Z was gonna retire. He didn't end up retiring, thank goodness, but you know, this album just had so many highs on it. It was just amazing, man. It had Allure, What More Can I Say, Moment of Clarity, all type of bangers on there, man. That album was fire, man. So I'm gonna say that that's classic number 4. 2004, there was like a part 2 to the Best of Both Worlds album with R. Kelly, Unfinished Business. And that's another project that I want to act like just never happened. You know what I'm saying? We're not even acknowledging that in Jay-Z's discography. That was complete trash. 2004, he had Collision Course. It was with Linkin Park. It was basically a lot of the songs from the Black Album merged with Linkin Park songs, and it was fire. It was a dope collab, but it wasn't a real album, so we're not gonna call that a classic. Of course not. 2006, Jay-Z drops Kingdom Come. Now, it's a lot of people that think that Kingdom Come is at the bottom of Jay-Z's discography. Even Jay-Z ranked his own albums one time, and he put Kingdom Come at the bottom of his discography. But to me, Kingdom Come has some bangers on it. It had Show Me What You Got on there. It had Beach Chair on there. I'm gonna have to go look at the track list to see what else it had on there, but it definitely has some songs I was rocking with on there. I think that song Minority Report with Neo was one of my songs I really like from him on that album. What else was on that album, man? The Prelude. He had a lot of good songs on there, but I can't call that one a classic. Then in 2007, he dropped American Gangster. American Gangster is like, as much as it's one of my personal favorites and I want to call it a classic, I can't really call it a classic, but it's right there. I feel like with the bad reviews that he got from Kingdom Come, he wanted to try to come back and make an album that had a concept, make an album that had a theme. It kind of had that 70s gangster theme vibe, and you know, that album ride. That album was tough. You know, it was very cohesive. All the songs fit together. It got that song Party Life on there, which is one of my favorite Jay-Z songs. Say Hello, which is one of my favorite Jay-Z songs. He had a collab with Lil Wayne on there called Hello Brooklyn. That's probably one of the songs that I didn't like too much. I feel like they could have did better. The song with Beans, I can't think of what it's called right now. Ignorant Shit. That song was fire. No Hook. Man, that album was like almost a classic, but I can't necessarily confidently say that it's a classic. It might be a classic in my personal book, but you know, I don't want to be biased or nothing like that, and I want to really do this subjectively. Not a classic. Then in 2009, he dropped the Blueprint 3, and I think he shocked a lot of people with this, because just the fact that he gave it that Blueprint title made people feel like, ooh, he about to drop a banger. And while it had a lot of dope songs on it, like Already Home with Kid Cudi, on to the next one with Swiss Beats, what else was up there? He had a corny song up there with Drake. I think it was called We Off That or something. But then he had that fire song with J. Cole, A Star Is Born. That's when we first got introduced to J. Cole. Just a lot of bangers, man. He had a lot of good songs on Blueprint 3. Forever Young. And I feel the same way about Blueprint 3 as I feel about American Gangster. I feel like it fell short of the classic stamp, but it was dope. It was dope. Like, he almost had a classic with that one, but not quite. So we're still at what, 4 classics for Jay-Z? After the Blueprint 2 in 2011, he dropped Watch the Throne with Kanye West's crazy nutball ass. I'm gonna have to give that a classic. When you listen to that album, it's very cohesive. The production is like on another level. The production is like year 3000 production, man. And I can't believe that Lex Luger, shout out to Lex Luger, man. When he made that beat for Ham, he was really on some shit when he did that, man. That was fire. So from top to bottom, Watch the Throne is definitely a classic. It started a trend of collab albums between artists, and nothing has come close to Watch the Throne. So I'm definitely gonna say that that is Jay-Z's classic number 5. Then in 2013, he dropped Magna Carta, Holy Grail. Now that had a lot of bangers on it as well. Some people liked the song with Justin Timberlake, some people didn't. What else was on there? Beach is Better was one of my favorite songs on there. Somewhere in America. What else was on that album? Crown was one of my favorite songs on there. And I have to look at the track list, but I remember liking a lot of songs off of Magna Carta, Holy Grail. And a lot of people shit on this album and act like it wasn't good, but to me, that album was a lot better than people like to give it credit for. So while I'm gonna say that this was a good album, I won't give it the classic stamp. And then finally in 2017, we got 444. Now, in my opinion, like, I know I said I'm gonna be subjective or whatever. 444 got mixed reviews. But if you strictly listen to the music, the cohesiveness of the album, and the fact that the album wasn't too long, and the fact that Jay-Z was giving you game on, like, you know, I'm a billionaire now and this is how I did it and this is what you should do. These are the things that are important. And the fact that the album was talking about uplifting the black community and black businesses, all the game that he was giving us in this album, I gotta call 444 a classic. I don't care what none of y'all say, 444 is a classic. Y'all might not agree with me right now, but give it some time. You know what I'm saying? Some of the best albums have to actually grow on you. It may not have registered in your brain yet, but 444 is definitely a classic. So I'm gonna give it a few years, 5-10 years for y'all to catch up. But I think eventually y'all will realize that 444 is a classic. Just like y'all tried to do with fucking Reasonable Doubt. You know what I'm saying? People didn't realize Reasonable Doubt was a classic at first, but it was so ahead of its time and it was so good that, you know, eventually people started going back and being like, hold up, this really was a classic. Reasonable Doubt barely sold any records when it first came out. I think eventually it ended up going platinum, but it was years and years and years later that people recognized the greatness of that album. And I think it's going to be the same case with his most recent album, 444. I don't know if Jay-Z is going to put out any more albums. I feel like he doesn't really have to. I feel like his catalog speaks for itself. He has 14 #1 albums. And like I said, he got like 5 or 6 classics. You know what I'm saying? So, and even if you want to debate some of the ones that I mentioned, he definitely got at least 4 undebatable classics. So that's my opinion on Jay-Z's catalog. Let me know what y'all think about Jay-Z's catalog and how many classics you think he has down in the comments. Hit that like button, share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you've been peeping this shirt that I've been wearing that says my brain is 90% rap lyrics, you can get that. Just check the description below. I'm gonna leave the link to my Teespring store so you can cop this shirt if you like. Support your boy so I can keep making these rap nerd videos for y'all. And as always, until next time, if you don't have a vision, you're better off blind. And if you don't live with a purpose, you're better off dying. It's your boy D-Sick, the rap nerd, and we out of here, baby. Peace.